Our brains are at the core of everything we do. They determine how we think, how we feel, and even how we act. But have you ever stopped to wonder, what really drives these processes? How does the brain take in information, shape our emotions, and guide our decisions? These questions lie at the heart of neuroscience and psychology. Today, we're going to unpack how these two fields come together to explain who we are as individuals. From the moment you wake up to the time you go to sleep, your brain is working nonstop, processing information, regulating emotions, and even influencing your habits. It's a dynamic, adaptable organ, and understanding its interplay with psychology helps us make sense of the most essential parts of our lives, our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Let's start with the basics. Neuroscience focuses on the structure and function of the brain and nervous system, while psychology explores how those structures impact the way we think and behave. Together, they give us a full picture of why we do what we do. Think of it as combining the hardware and the software of the human mind. Take anxiety, for example. Neuroscience helps us understand the physical processes behind it, like overactive connections in the amygdala, the brain's fear center. Psychology then builds on that by explaining how these brain processes show up in our behaviors, like avoiding situations or overthinking conversations. Imagine your brain as the ultimate control center. It's made up of billions of neurons that communicate through electrical signals and chemical messengers. These processes shape how we interpret the world and respond to it. Let's break it down. When you listen to music, your auditory cortex processes the sound waves. If the music stirs up emotions, your limbic system kicks in. And if the song triggers a memory, that's your hippocampus at work. All of this happens seamlessly, and it's happening right now, even as you watch this video. Even decision-making relies on your brain's unique interplay of logic and emotion. Your prefrontal cortex analyzes the options, while your amygdala adds emotional weight to the decision. The balance between these regions influences whether you act impulsively or take a measured approach. The brain isn't just reacting to the world. It's constantly interpreting and predicting what might happen next. And that's where psychology comes in, helping us understand why our brains process some situations as rewarding, others as stressful, and everything in between. One of the most fascinating things about the brain is how it shapes our thoughts and emotions. Thoughts are essentially patterns of electrical activity, created as neurons fire in specific sequences. These patterns form the foundation of everything from memories to problem solving. When you finally get something after hours of studying, that's your brain creating and strengthening new neural connections. It's like paving a mental highway that makes the thought easier to access next time. Emotions, on the other hand, are deeply tied to brain chemistry. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin play a key role in how we feel. A rush of dopamine might make you feel happy or motivated, while low serotonin levels can lead to sadness or fatigue. These chemical shifts don't just happen randomly. They're influenced by your experiences, environment, and even the thoughts you dwell on. This intricate connection between the brain's structure and our lived experiences is what makes us unique. No two brains are exactly alike, which means no two people process the same situation in the same way. Our behaviors, whether conscious or automatic, are also shaped by the brain. Let's talk about habits. When you repeat an action, your brain creates a neural pathway to make that action easier in the future. This is why habits, good or bad, are so hard to break. Over time, the brain relies on these shortcuts to save energy. But it's not just about shortcuts. The prefrontal cortex helps us make decisions, while the reward system, driven by dopamine, encourages us to repeat actions that feel good, even if they're not always in our best interest. This is why understanding the brain can help us break unhealthy patterns and create better ones. Practices like mindfulness actually reshape the brain over time. Studies show that regular meditation increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, helping us regulate emotions and stay focused. It's amazing how intentional behaviors can physically change the brain. Understanding the interplay between neuroscience and psychology isn't just academic, it's practical. It helps us navigate relationships, improve mental health, and even enhance our performance at work or school. When we know how the brain works, we can make choices that support our overall well-being. For instance, if you know that stress activates your amygdala and floods your body with cortisol, you can take steps to calm yourself, like practicing deep breathing or reaching out to a supportive person. These aren't just random tips, they're rooted in how your brain functions. Neuroscience and psychology are like two sides of the same coin. Together, they help us understand not just what we do, but why we do it. And when we understand the why, we can start to take control of our thoughts, emotions, and actions in meaningful ways. In the next part, we'll explore how neuroscience functions on a deeper level, breaking down the processes that keep our minds sharp and adaptable. For now, take a moment to appreciate the incredible machine that is your brain. It's doing so much more than you realize. In part 1, we discussed how the brain shapes thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Now, let's focus on the fascinating ways neuroscience functions to influence every part of who we are, from how we think and feel to how we react and adapt to the world around us. Understanding these functions helps us bridge the gap between the physical brain and the psychological mind, giving us deeper insight into human behavior. The brain isn't just a passive organ. It's constantly active, processing information, creating new connections, and influencing everything we do. Let's take a closer look at how neuroscience works to make all of this happen. At the heart of neuroscience are neurons, the tiny cells responsible for sending and receiving signals throughout the brain and body. Think of neurons as the brain's communication network. Each neuron passes messages using a combination of electrical impulses and chemical signals. These messages travel across synapses, the tiny gaps between neurons, to keep the brain connected and functioning. Imagine catching a ball. Your eyes send information about the ball's position to your brain. Within milliseconds, neurons in your occipital lobe, which processes vision, communicate with your motor cortex to move your hands. This seamless process shows just how quickly neurons work to translate thought into action. With over 86 billion neurons in the brain, this system creates an intricate web of communication that powers everything from reflexes to complex problem solving. To understand how neuroscience shapes who we are, it's essential to know what different parts of the brain do. Each region has specific functions that contribute to how we think, feel, and behave. The prefrontal cortex, located at the front of the brain, handles decision-making, planning, and self-control. It's also where we analyze information and think critically. The amygdala is the emotional center of the brain. It helps us process feelings like fear, excitement, and happiness. The hippocampus is key for memory. It stores and retrieves memories, linking past experiences to our current actions. The cerebellum, found at the base of the brain, coordinates movement and balance. When you multitask, these regions work together. The prefrontal cortex keeps you focused, the cerebellum handles movement, and the hippocampus might remind you where you left your coffee. Emotions are an essential part of being human, and they're largely controlled by neurotransmitters, the brain's chemical messengers. Dopamine is often called the feel-good chemical. It's released when you experience something rewarding, like eating your favorite food or achieving a goal. Serotonin helps regulate mood and is linked to feelings of happiness and well-being. Cortisol, on the other hand, is released during stress. While it's helpful in short bursts, too much cortisol over time can negatively affect your mental and physical health. Practices like meditation or deep breathing can lower cortisol levels and increase serotonin, helping you manage stress and improve your mood. These chemicals play a vital role in how we respond to the world, and understanding them helps us better manage our emotions and mental health. One of the most exciting functions of neuroscience is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and change throughout life. Contrary to old beliefs that the brain stops developing after a certain age, we now know that it remains flexible, rewiring itself in response to new experiences, learning, and even injury. For example, when you learn a new skill, like playing the piano, your brain creates new connections between neurons. The more you practice, the stronger these connections become, making the skill easier over time. This adaptability also helps people recover from brain injuries. With the right therapy, the brain can form new pathways to regain lost functions, proving that our minds are more resilient than we might think. Neuroscience also reveals the powerful connection between the brain and the body. For instance, physical exercise doesn't just keep you fit, it boosts brain health by increasing blood flow and releasing endorphins, chemicals that improve mood and reduce stress. Similarly, practices like mindfulness and deep breathing activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the body and mind. This connection between physical and mental well-being shows that taking care of your body is essential for a healthy brain. When you understand how closely linked your brain and body are, it becomes clear why activities like exercise, proper sleep, and balanced nutrition are so important for mental health. By understanding the brain's functions, we gain insight into why we think, feel, and act the way we do. This knowledge isn't just for scientists, it's something everyone can use to improve their lives. Whether it's managing stress, building better habits, or strengthening relationships, neuroscience gives us tools to make positive changes. It also helps us be more compassionate toward ourselves and others. When you realize that behaviors are influenced by complex brain processes, it's easier to understand why people respond differently to situations. As we've seen, neuroscience isn't just about studying the brain, it's about understanding how it shapes who we are. From neurons and neurotransmitters to emotions and adaptability, the brain is an incredible organ that defines every part of our lives. Thank you for joining me in this discussion on the psychology of the brain. Remember, the more we learn about how our brains work, the better equipped we are to live happier, healthier lives. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more content like this. Until next time, take care of your mind. It's the most powerful tool you have.